5 kids, 5 different disasters. My sister laughed, patting her belly like it was some kind of trophy. Everyone at the table clapped, even my parents, their eyes glowing with fake pride. No one looked at me. No one ever did. My name is Savannah Lee. I'm 27. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Guess who'll be babysitting again? She sneered, eyes locking on mine. It wasn't a question. It never was. I'd spent the last decade raising her so-called blessings while she hopped from one man to another, leaving me holding bottles, bills, and broken promises. But that night something inside me cracked. The sound of her giggle mixed with my parents' applause was like nails against my skin. They called it family duty. I called it a life sentence. As their cheers echoed, I pushed my chair back. The leg scraped against the hardwood, sharp enough to cut through the noise. Not this time, I whispered, almost to myself. But the silence that followed was deafening. My mother's smile faltered. Savannah, sit down. Don't make a scene. I shook my head. For the first time in years, my spine felt like steel. I grabbed my jacket and walked out, leaving their stunned faces behind. I thought I was free, but by sunrise, blue and red lights painted my window. My sister had called the cops, claiming I'd abandoned children who weren't even mine. And in that moment, I realized escape was only the beginning. The knock wasn't polite. It was fists pounding against my apartment door. My heart lurched, but I didn't move. A voice barked through the wood. Police! Open up! I pulled the door open slowly, and there they stood, 2 officers, one already scanning the space behind me like I was harboring fugitives. Savannah Lee, the taller one asked. Yes. My voice came out thin, but steady. We received a report that you abandoned minors in your care. We need to ask you a few questions. My stomach clenched. Minors in my care? They weren't mine. They never had been. My sister had dropped them off like bags of laundry over and over again, and I'd been stupid enough to keep folding, washing, fixing. But legally, I had no obligation. Still, the officers stepped inside, their boots heavy on my floor. My neighbor's doors cracked open down the hall, curious eyes peeking out. Shame flushed my cheeks. She said you were responsible, the shorter one continued, scribbling on a pad. Said you just walked out and left the kids with no food, no adult supervision. I clenched my fists. That's a lie. They are her children, not mine. I walked out because I've been raising them for years while she parties. I don't have custody. I don't have guardianship. Check your records. My name isn't on anything. The taller cop hesitated. I caught it, the flicker of doubt in his eyes. And in that hesitation, I knew I had one chance to prove the truth. I went straight to my desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Years of paperwork I had kept, not because I wanted to, but because I knew one day I'd need proof. I slapped it on the counter so hard the officers flinched. Hey, I said, flipping pages with shaking hands. Report cards, medical bills, school emergency contacts. Every single document lists my sister, not me. You won't find my name anywhere but as the emergency babysitter. The shorter officer leaned in, scanning the papers, his brow furrowed. She claimed you're their legal guardian. I laughed, bitter and sharp. If I were, don't you think I'd have signatures? Custody orders? Something official? I've been conned into mothering them, but legally, I'm a ghost in their lives. She's been hiding behind me, but the law doesn't. The taller cop glanced at his partner. We'll need to verify this with child services. His tone shifted, less accusatory, more procedural. Relief washed over me, but only for a second. Because I knew my sister, she wouldn't stop here. If she could call the cops on me, she'd twist the story further. My parents would back her up. They always did. The officers left with my folder, promising follow-up. The door clicked shut behind them, but silence didn't feel like safety. It felt like the calm before a storm. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister lit the screen. You'll regret crossing me. Savannah. Everyone's on my side but you. For the first time, I typed back. Not for long. The next morning, I walked into child services with my folder tucked under my arm. The building smelled like disinfectant and old carpet, but it felt like the first real weapon I'd ever carried. The caseworker, a woman with tired eyes and a clipped tone, motioned for me to sit. We received a police inquiry regarding custody, she said, flipping through her computer. You claim you're not the legal guardian of your sister's children. I don't claim it, I answered, pushing the folder forward. I prove it. She skimmed through the paperwork, school files, medical forms, even a notarized lease where my sister signed herself as sole parent. Each page was a nail in my sister's coffin. The caseworker finally leaned back. You're right. Legally, these children are entirely her responsibility. You have no binding obligation. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was as if chains I'd worn for 11 years suddenly cracked. But freedom had a price. The caseworker added, if what you're saying about neglect is true, this may open an investigation. If the children are unsafe, placement may be considered. A pang hit me. I love those kids. They were innocent. None of this was their fault. My sister was the hurricane, and they were caught in the wreckage. Still, I nodded. Do what you have to. Just don't let her use me as a shield anymore. As I left the office, sunlight hit my face. For the first time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like the start of war. By evening, the storm I'd predicted arrived. My phone lit up with call after call. Mom, Dad, even distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years. When I ignored them, the messages came. Mom, how dare you betray your sister like this? Dad, we raised you better than to 6 strangers on family. Uncle Jim, Savannah, family is everything. You'll regret this selfishness. Selfish. The word clung to me like ash. 11 years of unpaid nights with screaming toddlers, diapers, homework, meals, ER visits. And I was selfish. The final call came from my sister herself, her voice dripping venom. Congratulations, she hissed. You've made enemies out of everyone. Don't worry, Savannah, they'll all see what a cold-hearted snake you really are. I pressed the phone tighter. No, they'll see the truth. You wanted me to keep raising your kids while you lived like a teenager. You wanted me to stay quiet forever. But guess what? I'm not your cover anymore. Her laugh was sharp, cruel. You think child services will help you? They'll take my babies, and you'll be the reason. When they cry for me at night, it'll be your name they curse. The line went dead, but her words dug deep. I sank onto my couch, hands trembling. And then, another buzz. This time, it wasn't family. It was the caseworker. A voicemail. I hit play. Miss Lee, we've confirmed neglect. We'll need you to come in tomorrow. Your testimony could change everything. The war wasn't just coming. It had already begun. The hearing room was smaller than I imagined. Just 4 chairs, a table, and fluorescent lights that buzzed like hornets. My sister strutted in wearing designer heels and a smug smile, as if she were walking into brunch instead of a neglect investigation. My parents trailed behind her, faces stained, rehearsed. She threw me a look across the table. You're pathetic, Savannah. Dragging us here? For what? Jealousy. I didn't answer. The caseworker cleared her throat, placing my folder between us. We've reviewed substantial evidence. Miss Lee has no legal responsibility for these children. The mother, she turned to my sister, is solely accountable. My sister scoffed. Lies. Savannah's been their caretaker for years. She loves it. She lives for it. She's just bitter because I'm building a real family. Building. The words ripped out of me before I could stop them. You're not building anything. You're burning everyone around you and calling it love. The caseworker raised her hand for silence. We'll focus on facts. Multiple teachers, neighbors, and even medical staff have confirmed a pattern. The children are often left with Savannah without notice, while you, their mother, are absent. My sister's smirk faltered for the first time. My parents shifted uncomfortably. The caseworker continued, "We are considering temporary guardianship options. Savannah, would you be willing to step in, officially this time?" My chest tightened. The children's faces flashed before me, innocent, trusting. But so did the years of exhaustion, the endless sacrifice. I swallowed hard. The choice would define everything. The room held its breath, waiting for me to answer. My sister leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Go on, Savannah. Say yes. Admit you want to steal my kids." 4 years, I'd been trapped in her script, the unpaid nanny, the backup parent, the silent scapegoat. But this time, the pen was in my hand. I straightened my shoulders. "No, I won't take guardianship. I'm not their mother. She is." I pointed directly at her, my voice shaking but strong. She wanted children. She chose this life, and she doesn't get to hand it off to me like dirty laundry anymore. My parents gasped, horror flickering across their faces. They weren't shocked by her neglect. They were shocked by my defiance. The caseworker nodded slowly. "Understood. Then the state will pursue alternative placements if necessary. But Miss Lee is cleared of all responsibility." She closed the folder with a final, echoing snap. My sister erupted. "You can't do this. They are mine. Savannah, you'll regret this. You'll rot alone." Her words tried to pierce me, but they slid off like rain against glass. For once, I wasn't drowning in guilt. I was breathing. When the hearing adjourned, I walked out first. My parents didn't follow. My sister shouted something behind me, but the hallway swallowed her voice. As I stepped into the sunlight, I realized I hadn't lost a family. I'd simply stopped carrying one that never carried me. But the story wasn't finished. One more turn still waited. Weeks passed. The calls slowed, the accusations dulled, and silence finally replaced the chaos. My sister fought the investigation tooth and nail, but her patterns spoke louder than her tantrums. The children were placed temporarily with a foster family nearby, safe, cared for, the laughter no longer dependent on my exhaustion. I visited once, not out of duty but choice. When the youngest ran into my arms, sticky with juice and innocence, I whispered, "I'll always love you." But love doesn't mean being a shield for lies. He didn't understand my words, but he clung to me anyway. That was enough. Back home, my apartment felt different. The same four walls, but they no longer pressed in on me. I filled my nights with things that had once been impossible, reading for pleasure, walking at dusk, even sketching again. My hands no longer trembled from fatigue. They trembled with possibility. One evening, my mother appeared at my door. Her face was softer than I'd seen in years. She didn't argue or defend. She only said, "We never realized what we asked of you." I didn't reply with bitterness. Just quiet truth. You realized. You just didn't care. Her eyes watered, but I didn't invite her in. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't owed. It's chosen, and I chose myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't a placeholder, a babysitter, or a scapegoat. I was simply Savannah Lee, free, whole, and finally mine.